Good morning, GTS Retail Partners. We're very excited to have you with us today. My name is Scott Bohr. I'm the category manager here at GTS for the gaming specialty products. That includes role-playing games, miniatures games, and gaming accessories like dice bags, trays, that kind of stuff. Anything that helps to enhance your gaming experience really kind of falls under me. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on those kinds of matters. But today, we'll go ahead and get our webinar started. There's a special deal we're presenting courtesy of our Talsorian Games. We're going to have Jay Gray with us today to talk about the Witcher role-playing game as well as the upcoming Cyberpunk Red role-playing game. There's already a Jumpstart Kit out there for Cyberpunk Red, so that is an excellent opportunity. I have one myself. It's a great book and a great set of products that help people get into the game. The special offer today is that for everyone attending, you'll have the option of choosing either a free demo copy of the Witcher role-playing game book or a free copy of the Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart Kit as a special gift for you. That's a great offer, great opportunity for you to spread the word through your store about these two great products. So without any further ado, I will go ahead and hand the virtual microphone over to Jay Gray to talk to us about The Witcher and Cyberpunk Red.
Hello, I'm Jay Gray. I am the media ambassador for our Talsorian Games. I work for Mike and Lisa Pond and Cody Pondsmith, the Pondsmith family, who have owned and operated the company from its founding in the early 80s. I have slides. Let me share them with you and then do the thing where they get big. There we go, reading view. There we go. So please bear with me. I'll try to go through these relatively quickly. This is a general presentation PowerPoint that I put together for just conventions that I've adapted for this. So there's some stuff there we probably don't need to worry about. Like there's Mike Pondsmith looking amazingly cool at E3 last year when we were visiting with our friends at CD Projekt Red. We were founded in '85 by Mike. We produce 6 active game lines at the moment. Witcher and Cyberpunk were mentioned, but we also do Mechton, which is giant robots. And the idea is that rather than being setting specific, though we do have a number of settings, it allows you to build any robot, Pacific Rim, Macross, Transformers, Sakura Wars if you prefer steampunk. It is not locked into one specific setting or one type of giant robot. And Teenagers from Outer Space, which was our first game from the company itself. It's the comedy anime. Aliens are attending high school on Earth, and it doesn't matter why they are because it's funny. It's got a very, if you're familiar with anime, harem anime vibe, but rather than it being one guy surrounded by a bunch of unusually powered women, it's one high school surrounded by a bunch of unusually powered students, and because of that, they have a number of tropes. It's I've heard someone describe it as a great palate cleanser game, which means that when you're going between two very dark, grim, and gritty campaigns, it's great for just having fun and goofing around and not having to worry about the tone getting thrown off because someone total joke in the middle of the session. There is, of course, Cyberpunk. First came out in '88, the famous 2020 edition in 1990. You may have heard of a video game called Cyberpunk 2077, which is based on it. I'll talk about it more because it is our big product line at the moment. Cyber Generation, which was a spin-off of Cyberpunk. It's very millennial, even though it was published in the early 90s. You've got kids, they have powers, they're fighting against the establishment. It's a dystopian future. In Cyberpunk, you try to save yourself. In Cyber Generation, you try to save the world. Castle Falkenstein, which is our award-winning game of high adventure in the Steam Age with fantasy, fact, and fiction all mixed together. I'll talk a little bit more about that because we are actually doing things actively with the Castle Falkenstein line right now after several years of it being quiet. And The Witcher, which is the role-playing game for the official role-playing game. We work with CDPR, CD Projekt Red, to match our canon to their canon so that what we create in our books is canon to the video games. We draw mostly from the video games. Where we can, we draw from the novels. It follows the tone of the games down to working to make sure that when you see a mechanic in the game, we have a similar mechanic. Things like crafting or strong or fast strikes are available in the game. We'll talk a little bit more. Also, this is where I make a toss your coin joke. You don't need to laugh. It wasn't funny. Falkenstein is still in print. All our books, most of our books are still in print. Falkenstein, the entire line, is still in print. It is an unusual game. It's very narrative driven for your customers who are into story games or narrative driven games, rule light games. It is played with playing cards and not dice because that is thematic with the era where dice were common and lowborn and cards were something that the nobility played with. We are about to release 3 new books, new to us books. If you're familiar with the line, Fat Goblin Games, several years ago licensed the line and produced 3 books, Firearms and Margarine, Curious Creatures, and Variations on the Great Game, which they put out through Studio 2. We like them so much, we took them into ourselves. We're about to release them as official parts of the line. We just released a free adventure for people to play called Babbage's Engine via Drive-Thru RPG. It is a fantastic game, very thematic, great for live action. And if you have people who are looking for something that's not so dark and grim and something fun, if you have people who are into steampunk or people who are into history or romantic fantasy, this is the perfect game for them. The Witcher came out 2 years ago at Gen Con, done by Cody and Lisa Pondsmith. That would be Mike's son and wife. We just went to our second printing. You can find Easy Mode, which is a quick start for free on drive-through. We also have it available in limited quantities. If you want 1 or 2 for your store, just contact us in a printed mode we can send those out to you. We've put out Lords and Lands, which is a GM screen with a booklet inside that contains a new profession, class, a new race, new equipment, and that sort of thing. We are, like I said, working with CDPR on this. It uses the interlock system, which is designed to be both narrative and relatively crunchy. So basically, it's designed to give lots of options for combat. For example, in combat, you don't just defend. You dodge, or you reposition, or you parry. You have choices, or you block, and you have choices, and each of those gives you benefits, and each of them works better in certain situations. The idea is to make combat feel tactical and to give players the tools to tell a story with it, because sometimes you're playing a game, it's just, okay, now I hit them with my sword, now they hit me with their fireball. This is more designed to be, okay, I throw out my shield and I block. And for people who aren't great at coming up with description on the fly, this gives them better tools for saying what they're doing. We are currently working on a Witcher's Journal. It is bestiary with 30 new monsters. It is coming out May/June. That is our target window. We don't have specific dates yet, and when I say it's a target window, if we feel that there is a problem with the game, with a book that needs time, needs work, we will delay it. We would rather put out a good product rather than a quick product. Also, because Witcher is done with CDPR, it requires them to approve everything we do. They're a licensor. And as a result, because they're in the middle of working on a very large video game at the moment, we don't know exactly how long it's going to take them to do the final approval. The monsters who appear in the book will be monsters that appeared in the game, but also new monsters or new to the video game canon. There may be monsters that are only mentioned, monsters from the books. So they are fairly new, and that is a good opening for people who want more Witcher content. They don't just want the same thing recycled over and over again. We're gonna have higher vampires. For those familiar with the series, that's Regis and his kin, and 2 dragons. And we call these extraordinary creatures because they are not designed to be fought. They are designed to be bosses in terms of masterminds. They're there to add flair to the game, to be a big ultimate opponent, but in the same way a crime lord would be in a film noir game. They each have their own life path, so that every version of them, every member of their species is unique, so that when someone creates a vampire or a dragon for their campaign, it is unique to their game, and it's not just the same dragon or vampire that someone saw in another game. It also includes an investigation system, which you can use to create mysteries and run them and keep track of them, and have players solve them, because mysteries are hard to run in a role-playing game. It's always hard to know, are you giving them the right clues? Are they putting them together? This creates a system for helping you guide the host, the GM in this, and also guide the players in solving it. And what we're most excited about is we worked with CDPR on this. The framing of the book is the journal, the Witcher of the Witcher's journal is a man named Erland of Larvik, who was one of the first Witchers. The Witchers are mutants who were created basically through a series of training and being fed horrible concoctions. And some of them die and some of them survive. And Erland was one of the first generation, and he was the founder of the Griffin School, which is one of the schools of the Witchers. Geralt, for example, is from a different school, I'm completely blanking on which one at the moment. I apologize. Erland is the founder of the Griffin School, so that's CDPR canon. And we're going to be providing insight into what we call the golden age of the Witchers, the origin of the Witchers, the origin of the schools, how they came to be. It'll be new lore, never before seen. So if you have customers who are big into the lore of the Witcher, that's a great example. Sorry. And finally, we are currently working on Book of Tales, a collection of adventures, but not just adventures. We're looking at how other companies are doing things like Wizards of the Coast and saying that it's adventures sell to GMs, books with lots of options sell to everybody, and we're doing the same thing where we're going to have adventures, but we're also going to have new options for players, new options for game masters, new material that they can bring into their game, even if they're not running these adventures, to make it as attractive as possible to everyone. No particular release date on that at the moment. Now, one of the neat things about Witcher's Journal is that the core rulebook and Lords and Lands both relied entirely on art from CDPR. They've been very generous in sharing their archives with us, and they've got a lot of art. But because we have a new character and because we have monsters that they never covered, we have new art that we're working on, and we're working very hard to make sure that the quality of our art is right up there with the quality of what CDPR has done for Gwent and their concept art. So you have here Erland fighting a wraith, as well as concept art just of Erland from different views to give you an idea of what he looks like. Being a Griffin School Witcher, he is much more into the armor than Geralt would be. And some more art to show you. These are monster-specific art of two different monsters, which will be debuting in the book. We've worked hard with our artists through our art director, Jay Kovach, and it's looking gorgeous. It is some of the best art we've ever put into a book, and we're really excited about it. And Cyberpunk. As was mentioned, we are working on a new release called Cyberpunk Red. It is a new edition. Cyberpunk 2020, Cyberpunk Red, and Cyberpunk 2077 video game all take place in the same universe. In other words, everything from 2020 and Red is canon to the video games, and the video games is the canon future of this line. If you are familiar with V3, V3 is now its own offshoot, essentially a alternate dimension, a alternate Earth, so to speak. So it is not canon anymore, nor is Cyber Generation. Those are both their own unique worlds that branch off the timeline. Obviously, we are working with CDPR on this. They are getting, Mike Pondsmith, the creator and still developer, is on the phone with them weekly, where they talk, what is this character doing in 2045? What is this character doing in 2077? Down to, does this building exist in 2045? There have been, it's gotten that granular. So it's one of the reasons why it's taken us longer than we anticipated to put this book out, because we want to make sure that when they play the video game, which is going to be the best advertisement for Cyberpunk that's ever existed, they'll be able to see it and say, oh yeah, I see where that came from, and not have it contradict what we're writing. That's very important to us. We are looking at a June window. And again, especially with Cyberpunk Red, it is a question of if as opposed to for sure when. We will delay it if we feel the book is not ready. We are hoping we won't have to. We are chugging along very nicely. Things are looking great. But if something comes up or CDPR contacts us and says, hey, we're putting in this whole side quest that's going to impact you, you may want to do something. We're gonna sit down and take a good look and see, does that include lore we need to include? Is it essential to include in this book? And that may change the timeline of the book, as opposed, actually change both timelines, the in-universe and the release date timeline. And of course, it uses an improved and what we call a streamlined version of the interlock system. So it is still essentially the same rule set as 2020, the famous 2020, but it is not going to be as chunky, so to speak. We're looking at making the game run faster and smoother at the table because it is a faster, smoother role-playing game world, and that's super important to us. We are also working on bringing back all of our classics. That includes, most recently, Protect and Serve, Live and Direct, and Rocker Boy, which are all 2020 source books, and they are all specific to specific ideas. Protect and Serve is a police source book, Live and Direct is a media source book, and Rocker Boy is for the bard of the cyberpunk universe. So Rocker Boy contains lots of lore. If you have customers who really want to know about the lore of the video game or read, this is all good backstory for what that universe is like, and we'll have it all available for order, and hopefully our distributors will be carrying it. The Jumpstart Kit was released last August. We had lines around the corner at Gen Con. We were very excited about selling it. We sold out of the allotment we had every day. We did not come home with a single box except for the few boxes we were able to claim for ourselves because we literally did not get them until the show. The Jumpstart Kit comes with a rule book, which contains streamlined rules. You are probably familiar with what a starter set is. This is like the Call of Cthulhu, a D&D starter set, and that it's the rules, the essential rules you need to play within an hour of getting it out of the box, even less time. A world book, which contains information about the world and lore, as well as adventures, including the apartment, which is one of Mike Pondsmith's choice adventures to run at conventions. It comes with little standees, with little plastic stands. It comes with pre-generated characters. And the nice thing about the pre-gens is that while they are pre-generated, you can randomly select their stats from a series from a table, so that if you have two solos, they're not exactly the same. And you can roll a life path, an abbreviated life path, which means you can give them a background, which gives game masters who are looking to get a little more in depth than just what's in the Jumpstart Kit, something to hang their hat on. Comes with maps and comes with dice from Cube Workshop, which I'll be showing off a little bit later. This is all available, as is The Witcher, by the way. We just got a new shipment at the warehouse, and that is up for order. We are also working with several outside contractors, outside companies at producing merchandise. Of course, we're working we are working on the core rulebook with that June release window. We are working on Black Chrome, which will be a book that is what you can buy in the time of the Cyberpunk Red timeline, which is 2045, and how you get it, because it's not a standard buy-sell economy. Cyberpunk Red takes place in the aftermath of a large corporate war, which has caused a lot of reset buttons and disruptions to be hit in the world. And as a result, there's some scavenging going on. It's not so much a question of, is someone making it, as can people find it and sell it? And so it's a very different economy. There will be basic rules for that in the core rulebook, but there'll be more explanation of that and how it works and how it can be an adventure guide and adventure seed in Black Chrome. No release date for that yet. And then we're working with Monster Fight Club, Saturn Scape, and Cube Workshop to produce some really cool stuff. Monster Fight Club has started producing previews of what their miniatures are going to look like. So we've got the Cyberpunk Red miniature line here with a Nomad, that's a big one, and then the Rocker Boy and a Cop on the top on the other side. They are, if you're not familiar with Monster Fight Club, they are veterans of the industry, many of them from Gale Force 9, including the founder of Gale Force 9. This is his new company. We're super excited because the level of attention and detail they're putting into the miniatures is incredible. They are looking to release these soon. I have not gotten a price point on them. You would have to contact them directly on it. We will not be selling them. They will be, but we're excited to be working with them and to have these available upon release of the core rulebook. Likewise, we are working with Q Workshop. Q Workshop is producing gorgeous dice. It produced the Jumpstart Kit dice, which you see on the one side near their logo. It has just come out with a full polyhedral set for people who want to take their Cyberpunk into D&D or other games. There may be additional dice sets in the future. We're still working on possibilities, different color schemes, different assortments of dice, possibly even different varieties of dice. And then finally, those get ordered directly from Q. We do not sell them, but we're excited that they're there. And then finally, Saturn Scape. You probably will not be selling this directly to your store, but it's a good selling point, in my opinion, that people can go to Saturn Scape and get these complete sound sets to add to their game, to give them a bar in the Cyberpunk universe, which is the Forlorn Hope, complete with a Ripperdoc workshop in the back, which you can barely hear the saw blades and the screaming if you listen closely. And the apartment, which goes with the Jumpstart Kit, but is great just for anyone who wants a typical apartment building or group of dwellings in the Cyberpunk universe. Here's some art from Cyberpunk Red, and again, we are working hard on making art that is just as gorgeous as can be. We want this to be just the wow factor. We want people to buy this book just because it's gorgeous, if for no other reason. So we've got some art here, as well as a couple of other pieces, what we just released recently. We're really excited about it. We're working with a variety of artists from all over the world to produce some amazing, really gorgeous art of the world and the characters. For conventions, we will be at the Gamma Expo in booth 812. We will be at Gen Con. Those are our only two official conventions. We'll have a booth at Gen Con. Obviously, we don't know the number yet. We will also have a room where we'll be running games. If you'd like to talk with us at either myself or our business manager, Lisa, please stop by the booth, or you can email us at r.talsorian@talsoriangames.com, and we'll be glad to set up appointments with you. Sooner the better, especially since Gamma is not too long away, but even knowing our schedule for advance for Gen Con is always fantastic. We are happy to talk to retailers. That's always fantastic. And that is the end of my show.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I have to say that our Talsorian figures very heavily in my formative days of learning RPGs and playing games. Mechton, Falkenstein, and Teenage from Outer Space, but as particularly Cyberpunk was a big one for me and my friends as we transitioned from Dungeons and Dragons to something that was more neo-future, sort of a low near future, I guess is the term that's more commonly used with the technology. So this project holds a special place in my heart as a gamer and as a enthusiast. So for those of you who are on the call and would like to ask a question, please feel free to do so now. You can just hover over the chat or hover over the video, and then you'll see a button down at the bottom that says chat. When you click on that, you'll get a sidebar that has the chat information. And
Oh.
send it to all panelists. Feel free to jump in with that. Looks like I may be having some slight technical issues here. One of the cool things that I think I've seen with this game, in particular the Cyberpunk Red, is some of the additional content that's already been released. You've already released a downloadable adventure and there's a video that has Cody showing that game with the Dicebreaker crew as well. So I can put the link here in the chat so everybody can take a look at that at their leisure. But I assume there are more plans for that kind of activity.
Yep. We work with a number of smaller. Basically, there's actual players all over the place. They're playing, so why not play online? So we work with a lot of smaller groups, and we are beginning to work with large groups. Dicebreaker was the first this year. Well, technically last year, we've run games over at IGN of Witcher and Cyberpunk, And we'll be doing more things like that in the future where people can come and watch play. We are hoping to put out, as Red comes out, how to play videos. So let me answer that question. It was Manuel Rivera asks, how is Witcher RPG different from D&D that we can tell players? There are a couple things. D&D is D&D and is a fantastic game, and I'm sure there are plenty of people, your customers are playing it because that is the game of the forever. Witcher is more in line with the series. It is specifically tooled to the video games and the world. So it is we like to say it's darker and grimmer, but with shades of hope for it. Play-wise, it runs differently in that it allows much more in the way of tactical combat. You can target specific body parts. You can choose what kind of attacks and what kind of defense you make. There are critical injury systems where you don't just knock down somebody's hit points. You break their arm, you rupture their spleen, you give them a concussion. So you've got a much more narrative, visceral combat system where it's not just two people bashing each other with clubs and swords until one falls down. We really enjoy that. And because of that, and because of the life path, which allows you to generate these fantastic in-world backgrounds, no matter how much lore you know, you can know a lot, you can know very little. You can generate these great backgrounds for your characters that really tell you who they are. And you can choose or you can roll randomly, which is also nice. And because D&D is very much focused on the dungeon crawl. In D&D, you move through a series of encounters and it gives you, I need this many encounters for this many players of this level in order to make things work properly. Witcher is more designed to customize. The first Witcher game I ever saw someone play online featured two criminals, no Witchers. Just two criminals coming into a town and trying to fleece it blind. The GM had a plot. They got to the plot around the 6th episode, but it was mostly about them working to infiltrate the local brothel, infiltrate the local militia, and work their way through getting themselves fabulously wealthy at the expense of this community. And it works the same way. We have a merchant class, a bard class. The bard has no magic, just like Dandelion / Just Scare has no magic. We have magic classes, priests and mages. We have craftsmen. And the idea is that in Witcher, in D&D, you go into a fight and you fight whatever comes up. In Witcher, you want to try, if you're going to go into a fight, you want to try to know what you're fighting in advance so you can prepare for it, because that gives you your best chance of survival. And so it breaks you down to maybe you'll have a combat, maybe to a session, but it's just as likely that you'll have one every few sessions because you're too busy playing a game of intrigue with, say, the verbal combat system in town, or setting up your own shop and selling things. So there's a wide variety of things you can do to make it your world as opposed to your series of adventures.
Excellent.
Also, you need less dice. It's D10s and D6s.
So it works. Is it using the same interlock system that Cyberpunk is based on?
Same core, with some, customized, because Cyberpunk was very much about firearms combat.
Right.
Witcher is very much about melee combat. And then you see from 2020 to Witcher to Red, you'll see how we're evolving our thoughts on how the interlock system works over time. But and then just interlock, but with magic and much stronger melee focus.
Excellent. What are you most excited about with The Witcher? What's the most exciting aspect of that game to you?
Oh gosh. Well, right now we're seeing a big resurgence. Obviously, it sold gangbusters when it came out 2 years ago, and has been a nice steady sale channel for us ever since. But with the Netflix series, we saw a huge just boom. We had a really nice large print run for the first printing, and that sold out quickly. But just what we had left flew out of the warehouse when the Netflix series came. And we're just excited because we have this visual we can point to and say, that is what our game looks like. That is what our world looks like. You can see, and we have seen, there's the scene where Henry Cavill is earning the Butcher epithet and just moving through all these people, sword destroying multiple enemies. We charted it out move by move, round by round to our game, and it works perfectly. So, and we didn't intend that. We don't specifically work with the Netflix people on it because they license directly from the author. But it's just so gorgeous the way it works out. Plus, one of the nice things is we are working with Doug Cockle, the voice of Geralt from the video games. We've done 2 charity games with him of The Witcher where he plays Geralt of Rivia in the game. We had Matt Mercer in the first game and from Critical Role, like I need to tell anyone, and B. Dave Walters from LA by Night on the second game, plus Johnny KD from Dicebreaker. And we raised a nice amount of money, and we're going to continue that series to show off the game to people with singing, because for whatever reason, we get requests during the episodes to sing things. So Doug sang "Toss a Coin to Your Witcher" in his Geralt voice last episode. We'll continue doing that. So we're super excited just to be able to give this great visual in the video games and the TV series and say, now you can play in this world with these rules, and it'll feel like you're playing in this rules and not just shoving rules that weren't designed for it into that world setting. Because Magic, especially, works much differently than your standard D&D Magic.
Yeah, and there is another question Manuel asks. Let's see. That helps. We do a lot with D&D and use a lot of minis. We also sell a lot of them. And so how large is the mini range going to be for Cyberpunk? And will you have minis for Witcher?
I don't want to speak too much for Monster Fight Club because that's their place to do so. I will say they've got a lot of plans for Cyberpunk Red. Lots of plans. It's going to probably start with some base characters, but they want to put out, they want to make it the line to go to for modern urban / near urban future stuff, so that whether you're playing Cyberpunk or Shadowrun or any a Blades in the Dark hack where it takes place in the modern day, or any number of Eclipse phase, you'll be able to get these miniatures and make use of them in your game. So that's good, exciting. I think that they're going to go pretty far with it and have a lot of options. I can't speak about Witcher licenses yet. No current plans. We're working on it.
Great. Yeah, I did see what Monster Fight Club is working on at Gen Con, and that is a vendor that we're working on making arrangements with so that we can make sure that we have those miniatures in stock. So keep an eye for those. And then Q Workshop is also a vendor we're already working with. So you're able to get the Cyberpunk dice, the official ones that are coming out from Q Workshop. Those are also available for pre-order now, I believe. We're taking pre-orders now, and those should be out shortly. Any other questions, please feel free to hop in there on the chat. It sounds like the Black Chrome for Cyberpunk is going to be similar to some of the Chromebooks that came out for 2020.
It's similar and different. They won't have the exact same format, but they are gear splat books. It is going to be a gear splat book, but also, again, we're trying, and it's always been our philosophy that we put lore into everything, and we make the books as interesting as possible, and not just a collection of things. And we're doing the same thing with Black Chrome. And in Black Chrome, Cyberpunk Red, as I said, takes place in 2045. The Megacorps were severely wounded by the Fourth Corporate War. And because of that, there's not as much manufacturing, there's not as much transport between urban areas. And a lot of times it's nomads find a cargo container full of things, they bring it into the town and sell it. And so we're going to have what we call a scavenger economy in Red, where you're going to be able to change the price of things and even the availability of things randomly, depending on the roll of the dice to simulate that. And Black Chrome's going to talk more about how fixers work into that and things like night markets, which are essentially pop-up flea markets where you can buy things for one night only, and how the economy works. So it's going to give you a better idea for people who make their living in this economy, how they do so.
Great. And then Tabitha Simmons asks, when will the second printing of Witcher be in stock at GTS? I know that you had mentioned that it just hit your warehouse. So as soon as you start shipping, it should get to us within a week.
Yeah, Lisa, Mike, and Cody are currently at the last few days of their vacation. Lisa has been slowly filling orders during it, even though she's not supposed to be working. So hopefully everything is going out. I know that distributors have priority for those orders, for those books. So I don't know if it's on its way or not, but my guess is GTS already has an order for them, and if so, they will go out. And then it's just a case of how soon is it shipped to you, how soon do you get it in, how soon you send it out. So hopefully very soon.
Yeah, I would guess, this is just a guess or an estimate, but probably within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely have them sent out.
Yeah, our orders are already in. We're chomping at the bit to get those in. They're part of this, giving them as free demos as part of this webinar. So we're certainly looking to get those in as soon as possible. And then Manuel would also like you to talk a little bit more about Mekton.
Mekton is the very first game Mike sold way back in the day, even before the company was founded. We are on what we call the Zeta edition, which is essentially the third edition of the game. It's designed to, it's very anime focused. Mike likes to tell the story that he couldn't read Japanese, but he could find art books for Macross and Gundam back in the day, in the early 80s. And by going through them, he said, oh, I think this is how this works. Let me make a game for it. And since then, Voltron, Robotech, they've all dominated, Japan's dominated the giant robot market. And as a result, that's where we're pegged to. So you can do anything from your Robotech Macross love and space style play to your giant robots versus giant monsters, Ultraman style, to everything in between. And the idea of it is a mech building game too, in that we don't say, here are your mechs, go and pilot them. We say, here are some mechs ranging from your Bubblegum Crisis hard suits straight up to your Pacific Rim giant robot mech things, Jaegers. Thank you. And we are, and from there with that, and especially with the Mekton Zeta Plus add-on book, the two together, you can build anything. And for people who like sitting down and figuring out section by section, here's what's in my engines, here's what's in the arms, here's what's in the legs. People who have a very engineering mindset, it is a perfect game for just sitting down for, you can spend hours and hours just building your mechs and never actually playing with them. So, for the people who are out there who want to make their own stuff, they play the miniature games, they played a Battletech, or they've played, or they're interested, they've played board games with mechs, and they say, now I want to build my own. That's what this game is for. I will not lie. It is relatively crunchy. People make spreadsheets to do it with, but that's because it is designed to be able to allow you to build anything, as opposed to just kind of simulate anything.
Yeah, that was great fun in my youth as well, building robots and never really playing with them, but getting the chance to just sit down and play with numbers and build crazy robots and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, it is a lot of fun. I enjoy it, and it is still playable past that. There's great combat systems, and it does not. It's not like playing two different games where there's one game for the mechs and one game for the people. The relative systems work the same, so that it feels, when you're on the big spaceship in space and you're having your big romantic encounters, it doesn't feel like suddenly you're playing a completely different game when you suit up and go to fight the giant aliens. I'm a big Robotech fan, so that's my point of reference for Mekton generally.
Great. From a retailer perspective, what are some of the additional support mechanisms that are in place through our Talsorian for either in-store demos or is there any kind of, I know there used to be like the Chrome Berets. I don't know if those are still.
No, we do not have a demo team. We don't have anything like that. We may or may not build one up in the future. Honestly, we have not. We're focused right now on our lines as opposed to that particular thing. For store support, our feeling is, our philosophy is, we don't know what your store is like. We don't know what your customer base is like. We don't know, you know, are you mostly online? Are you a brew pub? You know, are you a gaming bar? You know, and stores run the gambit from your classic old-fashioned gaming stores to comic stores that have a gaming shelf to, I think there's a place in Baltimore, which is a old style gentlewoman's club with a gaming store inside. You literally need membership to get inside. So we don't know what your store is like. So I'm not going to send you a kit and say, run this, because that doesn't tell me anything. Contact me, tell me what you need, or work with me on what you need, and I will do my best to get you the materials you need to make your demos or what you do a success. I want you to do our stuff in your store, but I don't want to tell you how to do our stuff in your store, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what is the best email for people, retailers, to reach out to you if they have some questions for you?
Yeah, let me type that in the chat.
Okay.
There it is. It's j.gray@rtalsoriangames.com. Gray has an A, not an E in it. Oh, thank you. You know, it's honestly, it's one of those things where someone accused me of being lazy once because it means I don't have to come up with stuff. But the truth is it means I actually have to come up with more because I work with each individual store. It's just, it's not me. It's not my job to tell you what to do. It's your job to tell me what to do. You're the customer, and your customers are unique. Yeah, contact me about that kind of thing for business stuff. If you want to talk to me or to Lisa Pondsmith, our business manager, you can contact us through the r.talsorian email address, which I had there, which I'll type into the chat too. And we are happy to talk with you. I will pass things under her if I feel they fall into her bailiwick, and she will do the same. And yeah, we're super excited to work with any retailers who would like to work with us. I know we are, what, 5-6 years into the 5e phenomenon, and we're getting to the point where we're seeing players increasingly want to say, well, I played this for years. What else is there out there? And we know that a lot of retailers are saying, well, they've bought this for years, but now they're asking about other things. And we want to be those other things. Especially with, you know, it's the year 2020, so it's our year. Literally, we claimed it. But also with the video game coming out, with the Netflix series for Witcher out there, we've never had more visibility for our properties than we ever have, and than we have now. And so we're super excited to share it because there are people out there, and they'll see Cyberpunk 2077, and they'll say, oh, I want to see, I want to play in that world, and you'll have to play in that world. Not a world kind of like it, but that exact world. And you know, we're super excited. And for anyone who is curious, yes, we would be fools not to put out a 2077 source book down the line. So consider that unofficial, official confirmation that is working on.
Yeah, that's terrific to have that planned line down the future so that we have additional products to support players as they come into the store and want to play the games. So unless there are some additional questions, I think that's great information to have. Thank you so much for being here and for taking the time to talk to our retailers directly. Retailers, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hear from Jay and talk about all these great products that are coming down the line and that are already available. Cyberpunk 2020 is already available, and the information in that book carries into the new game. It's adaptable and usable in the new game. So there shouldn't be any hesitation really in carrying that line. It's a great feeder into the Cyberpunk Red coming up. And it's
If I may, and if this causes you to hesitate to carry the core rulebook, I do apologize, but I think it's important information. Every copy of 2077 will come with a PDF of 2020.
okay.
So everyone who buys a video game is also buying Cyberpunk 2020 in a digital format. So that's millions and millions and millions of people. I don't know how many will actually download it. I don't know how many will read it, but it's potentially millions of people out there who will have the game and may want the source books because they want to know more about that world.
Yeah, and in the interest of full disclosure, Cyberpunk Red or Cyberpunk 2077 has been delayed until September. So you have a lot of time to prepare for that release and the effect that's going to happen once people get that 2020 PDF. As David says here, that's an upsell, not a downside, and he loves it. So getting more and more people exposed to the RPG environment, giving them the opportunity to get their feet wet with 2020, which is a great game in its own right, and then having that develop into the Cyberpunk Red, and then just the giant tie-ins are awesome. They're perfect.
Yep.
So I agree with David that that's not a hindrance. That's not a hesitation on the retailer's part. That should be a reason to get more and a reason to really invest in the line. So we appreciate you being here. We appreciate your time. This will be up on YouTube probably later today, possibly into tomorrow, depending on how things download and all that, all the technology that we're dealing with now. So we really appreciate it. I look forward to meeting you at Gamma and seeing you at Gen Con and all the growth of the line. I really look forward to seeing both of those lines, both The Witcher and Cyberpunk Red grow. Once again, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you being here. Have a great rest of your day and a great week.
Yeah, I hope you all sell lots of stuff today.
Thanks.